The umpires gathered at home plate. Matt Galante representing Houston and Bill Robinson representing the Mets out there meeting with the umpires while the ground crew is still sprinkling the drying material about the wet areas. But again, to re-emphasize, the tarp has remained down and the infield should be in very good condition, and the pitching mound should also be in very good condition. It is the outfield where the prime worry is. And obviously all morning long and through much of last night, the speculation has been who benefits most from the rainout of yesterday. Well, this morning Tim McCarver sat down with the Houston manager Hal Lanier and talked about it from the Houston perspective. This is what Hal had to say.
Well, if we have any advantage at all, it's having a Nolan Ryan pitching on his the fourth day, getting the rest that he's gotten in between starts, like he did throughout the season. Again, it's only an advantage if we beat the Mets, and Nolan, has a great outing, of course.
And this, of course, is the third game, the third of three scheduled for Shea Stadium, and they will go on back to play inside in Houston in the Astrodome, so the weather will not be a factor there.
Nolan Ryan worked last Thursday night. He was the losing pitcher. He worked 5 innings against the Mets, and he gave up 7 hits and was beaten 5-1 by Bobby Ojeda. The Mets, of course, losing game number 1 and number 4 to Mike Scott and the Astros. And in game 3, Lenny Dykstra's 2-run home run gave the Mets a 2-1 lead, but it was evened on Sunday night. So this a very, very important game, this 5th game, because both teams are tied 2-2. That's 4 out of 7.
The pitching rotation for the remainder of the series, and obviously it could change, particularly with a fellow like DeShays that is still about, but it looks like it'll be Bob Knepper in game 6, and then if they have to play game 7, Mike Scott. That's the thinking at the present time, whereas the Mets will come back with lefty Bob Ojeda. He will be in the game number 6 and the 7th game for the New York Mets. The starter figures to be Ron Darling. A lot of empty seats as the people who have the tickets for today's game have been a little slow to come, or else they've just simply stayed in their cars or someplace out of the weather. And now they are beginning to come into Shea Stadium, and the crowds have been over 55,000 in each of the 2 games that we have played. So let's now run down the batting order for the Houston Astros as they are scheduled to come up and face Dwight Gooden in today's ball game. He career-wise is 8-1 against the Astros. Bill Doran leads off playing second base. Bill Hatcher will be in center field. Bill is batting in the number 2 spot. And Denny Walling hits third with Gooden, the right-hander, on the mound. Hal Lanier goes to his left-handed third baseman who hits left-handed, Denny Walling. Glenn Davis, of course, remains in the cleanup spot, the first baseman. He has the home run that won the first ball game to his personal history. Kevin Bass will be in right field, batting in the number 5 spot. Bass, a couple of doubles, 4 for 13 in the series. Jose Cruz. Jose has been relatively quiet so far at the bat in the series. He's 3 for 15 and no long balls with 1 run batted in. He bats 6th, and Alan Ashby, the catcher, moves into the number 7 spot today. Ashby, who had the second chance home run the other day to win a ball game for the Houston Astros after Santana failed to make a catch that he called night off of along the railing down there in the temporary stands. He failed to make the catch, and Ashby then at 3-2 knocked it out. Craig Reynolds will be at shortstop today. And, of course, Craig Reynolds almost had a pair of horns hung on him because of a critical error that he made the other day in a ball game. And it was an error that had some bearing on the outcome of the game that the Mets won. And, of course, the pitcher, Nolan Ryan, will be hitting in the number 9 position. Now, looking back over this lineup to give you an idea, no one really damaged Dwight Gooden, with the possible exception of Craig Reynolds, a shortstop. He went 2 for 3, but nobody else in that Houston order really did a heck of a lot of damage to Dwight Gooden, except for the first baseman, Glenn Davis, who hit the home run.
Only run scored in the ball game. Gooden gave up 7 hits. And I guess you might add that the Astros had a ton of chances to score. They stranded 8 in 7 innings against Gooden. And the reason that they didn't score is that Mike Scott stranded 7 of those 8.
Yep, he had a great chance to help himself and couldn't deliver. Now, The other thing that is going to be obvious to you, what with a right-hander on the mound, it inserts Dykstra and Backman at the top of the order, and those two are considered the catalysts for this ball club. So Nolan Ryan will come out and pitch to the first three people in the order, all being left-handers. And then, of course, the number 5 hitter will be Darryl Strawberry, who is also going to be hitting left-handed. So having Dykstra and Backman out there, the Mets field will be to their advantage.
They have strengthened their offense as the Houston Astros have strengthened their pitching staff.
Again, let's go to the videotape now as Tim McCarver talked with the New York Mets pitching coach Mel Stottlemyre earlier on in the day when the rain was falling. And here is part of their conversation relative to Dwight Gooden and the New York staff.
So far, Tim, it really won't have an effect at all on our staff. But I think if we get another day's rain, then I'll have to look at it and see what effect it'll have. But I'll have to make some adjustments. Certainly, I'll have to throw all the guys in the bullpen that haven't done any throwing for the last couple of days, for sure. And the other thing, I'll be a little bit concerned with Doc Gooden having too much rest, because today would be perfect if we can play today. If we get another day's rain, I'll be a little bit concerned.
Tim, I'm not sure that everybody understands just exactly what is meant when you say Dwight Gooden with the extra day of rest might be too strong.
Rhythm and timing is as much a part of hitting and pitching as strength and talent. It's all involved in that talent. And when a pitcher is used to working with 4 days rest every outing of the season, and he is thrown off that schedule, well, then he could be too strong, and by being too strong, he may have a tendency to throw the ball too hard and be too high in the strike zone. Of course, Gooden is more effective upstairs than he is downstairs.
Well, he's on his way to the mound in Game 5 of the 1986 National League Championship Series. And let's set the New York Mets defensively for you now as Dwight Gooden goes to the mound. Doing the catching again is Gary Carter. And the one thing about Gary, his bat has been so silent. He's 1 for 17. The outer defense will be Wilson, Dykstra, Strawberry. Inside, Hernandez, Backman, Santana, and Knight. If you get off into foul ground after